Hello, everyone. I'm Libby Hill, Awards Reporter for TheWrap. We are happy to have you here for our 2022 Emmy Awards screening of Emmy Contenders Showcase Comedy Producers, featuring 7 television shows. For our panel today, we have co-creator and executive producer of Shining Vale, Jeff Astrof, creator, star, and executive producer of Abbott Elementary Quinta Brunson, co-showrunner and executive producer of The Flight Attendant Steve Yockey, creator and executive producer of Peacemaker James Gunn, executive producer of Young Sheldon Steve Holland, co-creator and executive producer of The Sex Lives of College Girls Justin Noble, and executive producer of Ted Lasso Bill Wrubel. We're going to be showing you a sizzle reel, and then we'll go right into a conversation with our guests. To our audience, please participate in the live chat of the stream, share your thoughts about the shows, and let us know where you're tuning in from. Now, before we introduce our guests, let's take a look at the clips.
That is incredible, Miss Howard. Can't wait to get on that level. Where is your class, by the way?
Out in the hallway in a single file.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Miss Howard, you remind me so much of my favorite teacher from the 3rd grade, Miss Elliott. She was well-dressed, good with kids, a wizard with a glue gun.
Thank you, Janine. That is very kind of you.
I wanted to be just like her, actually. I was, like, obsessed with her. She wrote in my report card note, needs friends her own age, a bit clingy. She was a hoot. Anyway, hey, did you get my email about the 2 of us hanging together after school, or?
No, it must have gone to spam.
It's so crazy how my emails do that with you and nobody else.
Ah, class, turn around.
Bye, Mom. I'm sorry, Miss Howard. Bye, Miss Howard.
Come on, bitch. What's up?
Nothing. I'm just admiring your toddler trapped under a Toyota-like strength and our newly gouged floors.
I know you don't want to hear this, but we have a ghost, and I'm pretty sure she lives in this closet.
Oh.
Gator, I'm sorry to freak you out.
I'm cool.
Okay, let's assume we do have a ghost, Pat. And let's say that ghost lives right there in this closet. Do you really think that this armoire situation is the best way to keep her from haunting us?
Don't condescend. The armoire is a stopgap measure.
Great. Ghost problem solved. Let's have breakfast.
Hey, Peacemaker, what do these do?
This is Underwater World. Allows you to breathe underwater.
Okay, not sure how we can use that.
This one's scabies for all. Upon activation, it gives everybody 1 mile radius scabies, except, of course, the wearer of the helmet. This one is anti-gravity. Allows you to float.
Aimlessly?
No, I carry a tiny hand fan to guide me. This is Sonic Boom. It's the one I use to stop the rocker chick.
How many booms does it produce on one charge?
I don't know, 3, maybe 4. This one we should just throw away.
What is it?
Human torpedo. So you aim your head at whatever you want to destroy, and you become a...
Human torpedo.
Sweet.
Yeah, only sweet if you want to risk shattering every bone in your body. That's just a prototype.
Okay, so let's say I want to get this Sonic Boom helmet onto the top of that barn over there without being seen.
Just the helmet itself?
No, I'm gonna put a walkie in it and activate it from here. And then maybe you can put on activate anti-gravity and just float it over there.
Guys?
Tiny hand fan, but you know, once in the jungles of Cambodia, I used 2 oversized palm fronds as makeshift
Guys!
fans. Fuck! Deactivate anti-gravity! Deactivate anti-gravity! Did you say activate anti-gravity?
No, maybe. I don't know.
You can't fucking say that shit!
I didn't know it was that voice sensitive.
Fuck it, no big deal. I didn't just kill the only man who knows how to make it.
You did just kill the only man who knows how to make it.
I know, bro! I was being sarcastic.
Well, if you're gonna be sarcastic, you should really warn people so there's no confusion.
Okay, so how do we get the Sonic Boom helmet over to the barn?
Well, we can shoot a fishing line over the barn from one of these trees here and just let the helmet slide down.
Like Green Arrow?
No, not like Green Arrow. That dude goes to brony conventions dressed in the back half of Twilight Sparkle with a 4-inch wide butthole drilled in the costume.
Maybe it's so we can breathe properly.
You actually believe that shit? He has an insane story for every single superhero.
No, I actually heard that's true about Green Arrow, but that's the first thing he said that's real.
An Aquaman fucking fish.
Well, yeah, obviously.
That is the sexiest fucking thing I've ever heard. You had a one-night stand.
I know. I've never done anything like that before. You know those girls that are like confident?
Yeah, I hate them. Me too.
I just pretended to be one of them. Okay, I walked right up to him and decided to be that bitch.
I don't know. I still think sex is better when it's with someone you love and it's an expression of your commitment. Ow, damn it.
That is so boring, Kimberly. I'm with you, Whitney. Sex is better with strangers. End of story.
That is not what I said.
What? First of all, good morning. And second of all, where were you last night? Oh my God, she had a one-night stand too. Fuck, I'm so lame.
You ditched us last night and you ignored 20 texts from Kimberly.
And I'm on a limited data plan.
They still have those?
Yeah, they do. And so now if someone texts me, what do? I have to respond with an email or just hope that I run into them?
Okay, look, I know that we are all roommates, but that does not mean that I have to tell you where I'm going and what I'm doing. Okay, we literally met like 3 days ago. I don't even remember your last name.
Well, my last name, it's Finkel. Kimberly Finkel. And last night, Kimberly Finkel was worried that Leighton Murray got human trafficked.
Okay, Kim.
What? It happens. They snatch girls.
Okay, you're right. I get it. I understand that as a pretty blonde woman, I am a target.
How did this become a compliment to you?
From now on, I will tell you when I am not coming home, but no more details beyond that, okay?
No, I will not agree to that. I came to college to hear about my roommate's exploits. So sit down and tell us who was inside you.
Ugh! Bella.
No. Why am I the only fun one around here?
Hello, sir. Can I help you?
Yes, Nathan Shelley, party of 3.
Let's see, Mr. Shelby.
Yes, Shelby. Sorry, I should have said Shelby.
No, that is not your name.
It's pretty close.
No. Start again, from the top.
May I help you?
Yes, Shelley, party of 3.
Oh, yes, Mr. Shelby.
It's Shelley, and you know it, you dithering kestrel!
Jesus. No, too much. You don't need to be loud, Nathan. You just need to be commanding.
With all due respect, it's different for me, Miss Walton. You command every room you walk into.
Oh, hardly. Have you ever been in a room full of football club chairmen?
No.
Every time I walk into one of those meetings, they look at me like some schoolgirl with pigtails.
Oh, you'd look well fit with pigtails.
I do. But I have a secret. I make myself big. Before I go into the room, I find somewhere private. I stand up on my tiptoes, put my arms in the air, and make myself as big as possible to feel my own power. Like this.
Fuck, you're amazing. Let's invade France.
It's a bit silly, but it works for me. Find your own thing, but don't back down, Nathan. You deserve whatever you want.
Yeah.
Jenny, what are you doing here? Why are you here? You know, I gotta tell you, it's starting to feel like you're following me. It's a little fucking weird. I'm not gonna do your podcast, okay? So please stop showing up at places where I am. Stop stalking me, okay? What are you doing? Why do you have that? Why are you holding that?
It's my boyfriend. He's still totally hung up on his ex, like crazy hung up. I don't know what he sees in her. She's a self-absorbed, stupid loser. Like, how is that better than me? Like,
Jenny, listen. Don't drink because of a man, all right? And then when you find out that man is horrible, don't drink then either, okay? You gotta get out of here. You gotta go.
But you're here.
Yes, I am here because I'm here for all this stuff, so.
Oh, you're throwing a party?
Yeah. Yep, throwing a big old party. Yep.
Do you need help?
Nope, don't need help.
Do you want to come back to my place and we could not drink together?
Party's tonight, actually, so, yep, I'm really busy doing this. Let me tell you something. I want you to listen to me. Sobriety is about the journey, not the destination.
Okay.
It's all right, now put that away. Let's go. Put that down. Get out of here. This is a bad place for you. Not good.
What do we even know about this girl?
Well, that's the thing.
Buckle up.
She's 29.
Years old? Oh, what?
Guess we're standing again.
What kind of 29-year-old dates someone your age?
Obviously, the kind that was lied to.
What are we gonna do?
That's what we're figuring out.
You're gonna have to marry her.
I think so, too.
Hell no.
What do you mean, no? He got her pregnant.
Mary, she's 29.
Well, what choice does he have?
She's not gonna marry him.
What's wrong with me?
You're an idiot. You're irresponsible. You live in a garage and use a sink as a toilet. Care to jump in?
Hello?
Yeah, baby?
I was just wondering where everyone was.
We're just in here talking, and we'll be out in a little bit. Everything okay?
I'm fine, but Missy's watching a movie called Porky's.
I don't know what that is.
That one's rough.
Not good.
I'll be right back in, baby. You're gonna have to introduce us to this girl.
Why? Because she's having a grandbaby, you dumb son of a bitch.
George, but what he said.
I'll ask her. Well, she's not very happy with me right now.
Yeah, I like her already.
Welcome back. It's my pleasure to introduce Jeff Astrof, Quinta Brunson, Steve Yockey, James Gunn, Steve Holland, Justin Noble, and Bill Wrubel. Thanks so much for being here, guys. I am so excited for this conversation.
Glad to be here.
Thanks. So let's begin with a very small conversation topic. It's 2022. We're 70 some years into this whole TV comedy thing. What does it take to launch a successful comedy these days? And how did you find the process? And I want to start with our creatives here who are on the first season of their show, because that's probably the scariest. So Jeff, do you want to talk to us a little bit about Shining Vale and how you found the experience?
Sure. It's nice to hear that it's a successful show. That's the first. That's
season 2 means successful. That's, I don't make the rules.
I don't know. If I could figure this out, I'd no longer be working. To be honest, I think my whole thing has been to always write things that interested me, that I loved. I've never tried to. Sometimes you hit in the zeitgeist, and I guess horror is a good thing right now, and mental illness has always been a good thing, but it's popular, and it doesn't hurt to have, for my show, I have 3 all stars. Casting is everything. I have Courtney Cox and Greg Kinnear and Mira Sorvino, and casting is always good writing. But I think it's just a lot of it is just right place and right time, and there's a lot of luck and perseverance, and it's like it's a whack-a-mole, so I'm just lucky to be called to be working and to have a nice show.
Right. Well, we're going to circle back to that mental illness being a good thing, because I'd love to hear more about that. Oh, buddy, I got my bag right here. Like, don't even get me started on that. Quinta, can you tell us all a little bit about the process of Abbott Elementary coming to fruition?
Yes, it's similar to what Jeff Astrof said. Sorry, I agree with what Jeff Astrof said about timing and zeitgeist, and you're making something that you love, and you hope that the world will love it too when it comes out. And with Abbott, all in all, it was like a 3-year process of getting the idea for the show, selling and developing it and getting it on air at ABC. And I think that when the show came out, the world was just in this place where they really wanted a show like Abbott. And I think that we have a writer's room that blends a bunch of different comedic senses and humors together to kind of get the product you see. So I think that's part of it too. Like getting the humor of today into the show was really a positive force in making Abbott, as you said, a success, a show with the 2nd season.
James, can you tell me about Peacemaker? My wife has not stopped listening to the theme song or watching the dance sequence.
Have you learned it yet? Have you learned it?
I refuse. I try not to encourage her. but I'm sure over the summer it'll be our togetherness task.
I think the secret to making a successful show is just make a good show about people and then throw superhero costumes on a couple of them. And then it seems to work out pretty well for me. The people come first, the superheroes come second, and then everything kind of works out. But for me, it was, again, it really is the same as Quinta and Jeff said. I wasn't, I'm a germaphobe to begin with. So COVID wasn't the most fun situation for me. It still isn't the most fun situation for me. But when it first started happening, I had been working for a long time. I came home and had a couple of days when I was done shooting. And literally 2 days after I was done shooting, we went into lockdown in LA. And so I didn't know what to do with myself. I was editing from home, but I also needed something else to do. And really writing Peacemaker came from like the pain of like my fears of COVID and everything that was happening and the upcoming election and all that stuff. And I really did write to soothe myself. I didn't write, the show to, make someone else happy. I wrote because I had nothing else to do to distract myself from the difficulty of our lives at that time. So that's where it came from. So it was just a pure thing that came out. And I found that in my career so far, when things are pure, they either are successful or they lead to something else that's successful with people. So I've always just tried to be as honest and authentic as I can, even within the sort of explosions and action and horror and all the stuff I normally work with.
Justin, this is your chance to break away from the field and go in a completely different direction with your answer.
Let's calm down. Let's calm down. I like where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
How has the first season of Sex Lives of College Girls? How was that process for you?
I just start immediately sobbing on camera and talking about how hard it is. No, I mean, college was just like fresh on my mind. Obviously, I just graduated a year and a half ago from college. I'm kidding. I'm like cropping out my bald head on this camera. But no, this show came about because I had worked with Mindy on Never Have I Ever. Mindy and HBO Max were talking about making a show. She wrangled me in and we started talking about areas we liked. And both of us had like very fun college experiences that we kind of haven't like shut up about. Like we just like still talk about how like, I don't know, I peaked in college probably. And so we just went on this like tour of colleges on the East Coast and like talked to a bunch of current college students, which was both fun and a nightmare. And then we were like, this is really a show that like we haven't seen on TV before. And I had actually tried to develop a college show years earlier, and a producer told me like, you can't do that. There's no stakes in that area. Like nothing matters to college students. And I had already harbored this like note against that note of being like, I think stakes are relative to character, not actual like stakes in the world. And characters in college feel stakes on like a 200x compared to someone who's like established in their 30s. So it felt like something worth pursuing.
Right, particularly in this day and age when colleges can be a dicey investment. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. Let's take this a step further. Steve Yockey and Bill Wrubel, you have both come back to second seasons of extremely successful shows. Was there a pressure in coming back and being like, okay, people have expectations of us. What now?
What was weird about the experience is we started writing season 2 of Ted Lasso before it had started. We finished shooting the year before, and then COVID happened, and we were working on the show for 4 months before it premiered. So we were sort of in we were in a bubble, you know what I mean? Where we were just like we were keeping going with what we were doing. We had had the experience of working together in London, where the staff had really bonded, and that was a real that made COVID Zoom work a lot easier to navigate. And we had one writer who was Ashley Nicole Black, who I knew from because she works with Quinta on the Black Lady sketch show, and she was brilliant. So we just were kind of like, we didn't know what would happen, and we hadn't even really seen finished cuts for the most part, but we knew the characters because we worked with them, and we had writers who are also actors on the show. So we just kept going with what we were doing season 1 without any really paying attention to what people were going to like about the show. And so when people start to like it, obviously that was a great surprise. But we didn't know we were making a show that people were going to celebrate if they celebrated it for kindness. And I was like, oh, I guess that's what we want. You know what I mean? So whatever brand people put on it ended up being it was a hugely flattering, but it may not have been by design.
That makes perfect sense. Steve, can you talk about Flight Attendant?
When we were shooting the first season of Flight Attendant, I remember just looking over at my number 2, Jess Meyer, and like we were in the video village, and I was like, I really hope the 11 people who are going to watch this show really love it, because it's a weird show. Like it's a weird show. Like it's, I don't know. But I was really obviously excited, but kind of thrown by the response that it got. And I do think it was an example of, as Quinta mentioned and Jeff, like of timing. Like I think the show hit at just the right moment to catch people. Going into a season 2 after that, we did not have our season 2 pick up, because we really and truly were like, it wasn't like a trick that HBO Max pulled. Like we were a limited series, and then they wanted another one. So after the show had aired, I think we found that we were getting the pickup like the day before the finale aired. And then you just have to dive back in, and we wanted to give people something that felt familiar and felt like the show, but could also be surprising in a bunch of ways, because part of the fun of our show in particular is that like anything can happen, literally. So we wanted to take advantage of that and just kind of turn up the volume a little bit. I think we did that.
I wanted to take exception to one thing, only because as a fan of these shows, I think people are being modest when they say timing. Like I like so many of them, and I'm just going to pick out Quinta's show because I like it, and there's nothing against you, Astrof, just calm down.
By the way, that's all I heard so many of them. I heard like 6 out of 7.
No, I meant except Shining Vale.
There we go.
Abbott Elementary, like everything here, is a good show. You know what I mean? Like, that is a good show in 1958. They wouldn't have been able to do it in color. 68, 78, 88, 90. You know what I mean? It's like, so I do think, and maybe I'm a touch protective because everybody talked about timing with regards to Ted Lasso. But I feel like these are all good shows, and the timing to me is a little bit of, you can't control it. So whenever it comes out, it comes out. But I think these are, like I said, the shows that I'm a fan of, all except Jeff's, would have been good at any time.
I think you're right, Bill. We are.
Whoa.
Bill can be right. Well, I guess maybe we say that too, because I see so many good shows that go overlooked, and I always feel bad about that. Well, maybe it wasn't the right platform, right time, and so I guess when you do have a hit, you maybe soothe yourself by saying like timing to make yourself feel better. But you're right, and I think I agree with you. All these shows here are good television shows, even ones that I didn't know. I was watching Young Sheldon with my mom, and I was like, this is a good fucking show. Like she loved it, and it's good. It's a good comedy, and I think that's true. So yeah. Great.
And I just want to buy it back, Jeff. I didn't mean to be teasing you. I like Shining Vale is a great show. Sharon Horgan and Jeff are a great team. So if I sounded snarky, I apologize.
Thank you. And I love Todd Lusso. No, but I do think that I just mean timing, because I think that like all of us, at least I've had shows that I thought were good shows that just weren't in the right time or the right place, or maybe they just weren't as good as I thought. But I think everything you do as a creator, you think is going to be good, right? Like why I agree that every show here I'm a fan of on here. Obviously, I think there is, success always, brings success, and people gravitate towards good things. And I think now, especially with streaming, you get more of a chance if you have a show that people believe in creatively, which is, I remember I was on the show, I think it was on Veronica's Closet, that got canceled with a 17.8 share. By the way, not a good show, but it's also 17.8 times higher than a hit show now. So, I think that also has to do with timing.
Well, Teenage Me would really quibble with you classifying that show as not good. But we're going to move directly past that because I feel really old. And Steve Holland, I want to bring you into this conversation. With Young Sheldon in its 5th season, what has changed for you as the show's run has continued, other than trying to nab storylines off of Justin Noble and the Sex Lives of College
I was
Girls,
hoping I was trying to
obviously?
trick him into giving me some. I mean, I think we tried, Young Sheldon had the benefit of having the hook of Big Bang Theory to get into it and the hook of Sheldon. But it was important to us to not just try to redo a version of Big Bang Theory and make this show different. And so we've always been trying to build it into an ensemble. And I think we've gotten to do that more and more as this season's gone. And I think definitely season 5 is it's just an ensemble show. I mean, Sheldon's an important part of it, but it's really about the family and the characters. And honestly, like having these kids who were, 9 when we started, which is, they've grown into such good actors. It's really let us run free with telling more stories, which is great. In the earlier days, they were great, but they were great kids and you could only do so much with them. And as they've gotten older, not only is like the opportunity for stories, you can tell more interesting stories about a 13-year-old than you can tell about a 9-year-old sometimes. And it's really opened up the world for us. So it's really been building this out as an ensemble show. And I feel like this season, especially, we got to that place where it's just, we've got the main cast and we've got an amazing supporting cast with Wally Shawn and Ed Begley Jr. and Wendy Malick and this like great all-star roster of supporting players. And so to build out the world in that way, I think is really what we've achieved in this season.
Libby, I know you were joking about him stealing stories from me, but I do need to get on the record here that we have little writers' room houses next to each other on the Warner Brothers lot, and I have caught him in the bushes multiple times.
Well, I'm glad you're confident that was about story stealing. Who knows what else it could have been. But Steve Holland, before we move on, I want to ask you about the challenges of sort of creating a show within that exists within a larger universe that comes from a pre-existing property. Were there particular challenges to that as you launched it and have, as you said, you sort of moved beyond those now?
I mean, sure. Obviously casting Sheldon was it's seeming insurmountable challenge at the beginning. We're like, can we find a kid who's 9 who can do what Jim Parsons did? Like, that doesn't seem possible. We're not going to find that. And then we got this audition tape from, Ian's mom had shot him on tape and sent it in. And we're like, who is this kid? And we started Googling him, and he had done like red carpet theater reviews on Broadway when he was like 7. He was like his dad is a theater actor and he's a big like theater fan. And you can find these videos of him online. Like, the kid's a unicorn. And so that, casting him was a really important piece of the puzzle. And then, it's everyone knows the ending of the story. If you're a Big Bang fan, you know what happens to Sheldon, so how do you tell a show that has stakes? And it became a big internal discussion. Some of it is like, where the story goes, but maybe we can find ways to tell the story that it doesn't unfold in the ways you think it's going to unfold. And we sort of gave ourselves some freedom in that, because Jim narrates the show as adult Sheldon. Internally, we sort of talked about, this is Sheldon telling these stories about his family from an older point in his life where he has kids, and he's now looking back at his family and especially his father in a different way than, the stories he told about it as Big Bang. And that sort of let us have some freedom, because on Big Bang Theory, talking about his dad and his family, you could tell him they were jokes. They were off-screen characters, and his dad could have his drive-in whiskey and shoot his mom's fine china off the roof with a shotgun like it's Skeet. You can't have a guy do that when there's actual kids in there. It's terrifying. So we were trying to navigate that world of trying to honor sort of the canon of Big Bang, but give ourselves some freedom to tell it in a different way.
James, how about you? That's I assume that's something that you have to contend with too, creating something that exists within a larger pre-existing world. How did you approach some of those challenges?
I don't do any of that. I mean, I really just tell the story about the characters I want to tell. And one of the fun things was being able to shape like the DCU through what I did. But I didn't, there was a big battle because we had some big characters in the final episode. And so that was a hard get and a hard ask, but they gave it to me. But really, my little universe of the team Peacemaker, they're just so human and they're just their own little universe. So I don't really have to deal with any of that. Just like I don't when I do Guardians for Marvel. It's like they're in outer space. They're totally far away. I don't have a writer's room. Writer's room is me. I just kind of do my thing, and it's like I listen to all you, like this is like so foreign to me. Doing this is interesting, and what you guys do is like so amazing to me. And I'm so alone all the time. It's hard to explain, but I don't really have to deal too much with the other stuff in the DCEU, because it's not like I'm telling Peacemaker versus Superman or Peacemaker versus Batman. They're blips in the overall scene of what's happening.
Well, yet you're not telling those stories yet.
I will never tell that. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, listen, one of the reasons why I like taking characters that nobody knows is because I can change them and make them my own and make them fully human. Kids have so many expectations on what Batman or Spider-Man or Superman or all those people are supposed to be. But taking characters that are just names and have had a few issues of a comic book over many years and turning them into something that's largely a cinematic or a television property is a lot different than having to deal with the expectations of making, the Flash, who has, 1,000+ comic books that he's been in, and everybody has a different idea about what that character is supposed to be.
Right. So obviously we sort of established that any TV series has its own unique challenges coming to fruition. What I'm curious about is how TV has changed in recent history. We're sitting on this panel. Two of you have shows on broadcast television, very popular shows. The rest of you have shows on streaming platforms, which 10 years ago was a little bit was completely unheard of. Let's start this way. How has being on a streaming platform changed your conception of what TV looks like and how it functions? And I want to start with Jeff Astrof because of mentioning Veronica's Closet, I know for a fact he's been in the game for a while.
Yeah, I'm actually only 29. This is the stress James is working in this field. That joke always plays well because I'm not 29. So yes, I have had, and every conversation I have draws me back to Veronica's Closet. I've been doing this a long time. I started in, obviously, I started on Hanging with Mr. Cooper actually before that's how long I go back. That was my first job. And mercifully have been working for 30 years.
I love that show.
Thank you.
I just had a big nostalgia kick.
I wrote about Hanging with Mr. Cooper for my college thesis. That's not even an exaggeration.
Right. Well, here we go. It's me and Norman Lear. But I've gone through like a lot of tectonic shifts. I think maybe Bill has been around for that, or Steve has been around for that as well. Like there's so many. I remember I was on Friends. We could talk about that, and they counter-programmed How to Be a Millionaire against us, and that was going to be the end of Friends. And then they overplayed that hand. So like we the first thing I think was like game shows that almost killed us, and then TiVo, we were dead. Like, because it's like people can zip, like we're basically just, the whole point of network television is to make sure that the car commercials don't hit each other. And then like when you could skip through the car commercials, that was a problem. But then, then there was subscriber-based TV, and then there was reality. There have been so many things that have been the death of TV. And I remember my last show, and that's why I talk about timing. The last show I did was with some of the people I think Quinta is using like creatively, was a show called Trial and Error, and it was a murder documentary based on The Staircase, and that was my that was like, I was so sure about this as a Netflix thing, and basically when I pitched it like 7 years ago, no one wanted to do it. Like, we're not doing a murder show like about a comedy, do a network comedy, and I was like, this isn't a network comedy, this is for Netflix, and they were like, wait, the DVD mail-in service? We're not doing anything like that. So it's like I was like the last show that didn't get on Netflix. That like, so I happen to be on Stars now. I got to tell you, it's so amazing for me being on a streamer because, I remember when Trial and Error premiered, the best day of my life was the day after it premiered because Nielsen was down. And it was like such a the worst day of my life was when Nielsen went back up. Turns out we weren't a good lead out for This Is Us. Like Bill said, like there's a purity in writing when you don't know what a show's going to be. Like on Friends, when back then when I worked on Friends, like we had no idea that was going to be like this, game-changing show. We were just like a bunch of 28-year-old idiots in a room just telling our stories. So I think that part of the problem with streaming now is the fact that I think maybe Steve is the only one here who does more than 10 or 13 episodes. I don't know, Quinta, I don't know how many episodes you do. I don't know if you have a full, 22 episodes. But I start on Friends, we did 26 episodes. And then, and you had 13. And if you only did 13 episodes, you were just like, what the hell am I going to do? And now 13 episodes is like 2 seasons and a Christmas special. So I think for me, 10 episodes to 13 episodes is a perfect season to tell it. I'm very grateful Star's model is 8 episodes, so we have to squish more in there, but not being beholden to ratings is so great because I think as a writer, this is the first time in my life I feel like I'm more kind of bound to make something that's creatively great for me that I feel really good about and take chances. And so I love it. It would be very hard for me to go back to network, except for the fact that I like money also. And I don't have as nice and clean a house as Quinta, so there you go.
Anyone else? Anyone else have a love letter to their streamer or premium cable?
I'll only say this: it was it was interesting to be so absolutely wrong because I had sort of only come from network, and Bill Lawrence, who ultimately he and Jason were the creative visionaries. Bill was like, you learn this rule, which is comedies play best at 22 minutes, like a half-hour comedy. Not even 25, not even 27, 22. You know what I mean? And then you do an hour-long episode of your network show and you learn that that's true because it's boring. So, but I was like, Bill was like very firm that comedies play better when they're shorter. And I was like, I'll talk to Jason, I'm going to explain to him, and I couldn't have been wronger. I think Jason Sudeikis' vision was like, why can't it play 29 minutes? Why can't it play at 32 minutes? You know what I mean? And what I learned, the audience doesn't care. You know what I mean? The audience isn't aware of the time, and network fits that time because they're selling commercials, etc. But that was sort of what was interesting to me about streaming was like, you can tell a comic story and the tightness and the brevity isn't necessarily essential to it working.
I think for me, when I moved to LA, like in 1998, I wrote pilots every year. Like I made a part of my living by writing pilots for, whatever network was hiring me at that time. And I could not figure out the code, and I started writing films, and then films I felt were a little bit, it wasn't about what the demographic wanted at this time, on this date, on this time. And I started becoming successful at film writing. And over the years, then I've stayed in movies and haven't done television, but television has changed, and television has kind of become, more like what movies used to be than what they are now, where it really is more about premium television and quality shows and telling the stories that you can't tell in the theater because only so many movies can get made, and they really are all, just a couple of genres. And so I feel really fortunate with HBO Max and still have that HBO culture that's always existed of, being about taking risks. There's political stuff that I probably couldn't do on regular television. There's obviously a lot of, sex and violence and crass humor that I couldn't do on regular television. So I could not exist, in the old model of television. And I'm really, really grateful to HBO Max for what they did. And they 100% were supportive all the way. And I really love them. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to say what everyone is talking about is just making me think about my experience and kind of coming up through digital and how that was an entire other way of sharing comedy. produce the bite-sized comedies like Vines and YouTube videos, a little bit longer form. And so for, I think, my generation, that was another medium in addition to streamers, or another platform rather, in addition to streamers, in addition to network television, in addition to film. And moving through all of those spaces comedically as a performer and a writer, like I find it really inspiring to say, I want to go tell this 22-minute story because I actually want to build the act breaks for commercials, and I want to be a part of like the family television viewing legacy of ABC. But then I have other things I'm developing where I'm like, that needs to actually be on FX because it needs to be dark. There needs to be no parents need to see this, so someone should watch this in their own private space. And I think that's what's really exciting as a creator about the changes of television is now there are different places to go to tell these different types of stories, and you're dealing with the expectation. That's what's been more compelling to me psychologically is people have these expectations from the streamers, and like watching people be like, my HBO Max account is fire. I got everything I need on here. And then being like, but my Apple account has the prestige. And like, it's like the audience perception of what they're getting from each platform. And I've experienced that with ABC where people are like, I'm going to watch this comedy with my family. And Abbott is a little bit more crass than what they've had recently. So people feel like they're having this exciting time. But that's what's been so interesting to me about the changes in television. It's like different places to go to tell different stories.
Yeah, I think doing a network show, there's certainly a jealousy of like, I would love to write 10 episodes of something instead of 22, or when we did Bang, it was 24. But then I also think there is a space for these shows on network that do that many episodes that fans get to live with week in and week out, that I wonder, like there's shows that, I watched, when you would tune in every week, like, Buffy and Friends and these shows that you grew up with, and they become such a part of your DNA because you spent so much time with these characters and with these people. And it's definitely a different kind of storytelling because you have to do it in this long form. But I do think that there's like still an interesting place for that. Although as a writer and storyteller, someone like, can't we just do 10? I just want to do 10, tell this thing and be
By
done
the way,
with
when
it.
you do 10, you run out of stories at 7. So
also, you get a whole new set of issues, because I came up through the network ring too. I was like doing 22 and then 24 is on Brooklyn forever, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And then I was like 10, a season of 10. I've done it in my life. I'll have a vacation in the summer. I'll see
Don't
my
tell me it's not
husband,
great. It's like, it's the golden thing I keep holding out for. Tell me it's great.
But the thing is, once you then do the 10, the only thing that's static is it takes a year to make a season of television.
Right.
And the rules change based on what that is. So if you make 10, all of a sudden you're breaking 40 scenes instead of 15, and you're shooting on 2 different coasts, and you can do so many more cool things. And that's what's great about streaming. And you can think about, what the next episode is in 10, 9, 8, and going right into the next, that you don't have to think about week to week. But I'm working so much harder on 10 episodes of TV than I ever did on 24. And it was like the perfect karmic, like, conk to the head with a hammer that I thought was coming. I thought it was going to be
24 is insane. Like we did 13 of Abbott last season, and we'll see what happens this season. But like, I am looking forward to having, I call it like pop in, pop out television, microwave television, like episodes where someone's like, oh, the episode where blank, and like, I feel like that's still a special thing for network TV, network comedies in particular, that I don't quite have that experience with streaming comedies, because it's the storytelling is there's an arc that you can't pop in and pop out of. But with I miss, like, with Friends is like, like the episode with the earring is like where I started watching it, and like it's hard to do that with the streaming comedies, I think, so far.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one thing just to double down on what Quinta and Steve were saying. Like, I remember seeing an interview once. Jerry Seinfeld was interviewed on the comedy series 60 Minutes, and they were asking him about, do you wish you could do Seinfeld on HBO or cable where you could say more about, and you'd have more freedom? And he was like, no, not at all. The challenge is the constraint. The constraint, rather, is the challenge. And I thought that was so interesting. It's like, oh, he's going to make his art within these limitations and make it as good as possible. And so what you guys do, I applaud that, because I think that's super cool.
I think so too. I think that's you're doing the Lord's work by doing a network show that people watch. And I think even the shows that people binge don't have the same, the same heart or invitation in as like a network television. It's not, it's hard to make appointment television now because you do your own schedule around it. But I think it's great. I think to do a show that people are talking about that's on the network. And I agree with Bill that I remember a guy I worked with said, we should be able to curse on network TV. We're losing out. This first when shows were coming on cable. And I thought the tighter the frame you have, the more, it's just harder. It's more of a challenge. But, on Friends, we did a lot of dirty stuff without ever saying an F-bomb. My show now has more curses than The Wire, but it's not just because I've been saving them up. It's just because that it's about mental illness, and that happens to be a symptom of mental illness. But I don't think there's anything necessarily funny with cursing. And I think a lot of times to tell a great joke, to craft a great joke on a sitcom is incredible and deeply satisfying.
I wanted to just add though something, and I'll ask you guys if anyone else has experienced this. I too, just like James, I had a great experience with HBO Max in terms of them supporting sort of wildly creative things and being yeah, go do that, don't mess it up. But the experience that I've had, and Quinta mentioned her shows maybe a little bit, I believe you used the word crass, more crass than some of the things humor-wise. But I also have experienced that networks are trying within their, it's hard for them because they're all in these tight Chekhovian coats where they can't do exactly what they want to at any given time. But it does feel like it's shifting, and that the network shows are, the idea of what network is opening up and changing a little bit in response to streaming, because they have to. And so then you end up with a show like Abbott Elementary that's addictive and crazy funny and just so good. But you're also it just feels to me like it's an evolution that's ongoing. I don't know if anyone else was experiencing that in their development.
This is going to turn into just a group panel love letter to Abbott Elementary, I feel like. But I feel the same way as Steve. It's and the individual networks are evolving within themselves. I had an ensemble workplace comedy pilot at ABC a couple years ago, and it was it's going to get picked up. It's going to get picked up. Little whispers, start hiring your writers. And then it was our bread and butter is family. We only do family. We're a family channel. We do family comedies. And when Abbott got picked up, I was cheering on the sidelines, being they did it. They're doing it. They're breaking out into new and stronger comedy things. And it's so great to see them, I think, from grit and them grabbing at things, but responding to different material and taking chances that are clearly working. I mean, it's so good.
And sorry, Libby, if I was just gonna say that I think that Steve, you're absolutely right. All the streaming, I say it a lot about Abbott, all the stuff that was happening in streaming, they couldn't ignore it anymore. You can't Peacemaker cannot be happening and you're people don't want violence. They do, but we have to figure out what our version of that look. And ABC is a Disney owned company, and they have something to protect at ABC Network, but it was often well, if everything is happening over here, the least we could do on Abbott is have a funny drug dare concert, where we find a way to find a creative way to kind of be as raunchy as we can be while still being in the confines of the network. But network TV has changed so much. Our development exec, Erin Wernberg, she pays attention to comedy, and Wendy and Zach, and then Craig Erwich came in when Craig Erwich came in, that kind of changed a lot of things. There was this guy who knows about Hulu, and I think 3 years ago I was developing something at CBS, and I was well, will this go to next day streaming? And they were absolutely not. And I was well, then my show's going to tank here. It's not going to have a place here. But Craig Erwich understood streamers. He understood ABC, but he also understood what was going on in the world, and all of that makes a difference with how network comedies will have to now evolve into something more relevant, I guess.
But I also think that, like, that's what I was saying before about timing, that most of the people agreed with, except for Bill. That, like, I don't think you could chase a trend. I think people are like, now it's like, oh, we're going to do feel good Ted Lasso. We're going to do feel good, because Abbott Elementary is feel good. Or we're going to do mock doc. I think it's just got to be like showrunners or, creative forces that have a story that they want to tell that's interesting. I think that the thing about that makes network relevant is if they have a great show. Like, I think the thing that's making network less relevant is that showrunners want to go to streaming because you don't want to have to be told that the character's not likable. That was the big thing.
Yeah.
New Adventures of Old Christine with Julie Louis-Dreyfus, and we're constantly told she's not likable, but she's Julie Louis-Dreyfus, so she is.
I loved that show. I
love that show
so
too.
sad that show got canceled.
But that was the thing. We were told that she couldn't, she was an unlikable mom. But that's why people are going to network. That's why people are going to streaming, because it's allowing creative people. I don't think it's just because you can curse or because you can show sex scenes. I think it's because you could tell human stories without having to worry that Geico is going to cancel their.
Absolutely.
It also feels like on streaming there aren't guardrails in a way. Like your show, like just Flight Attendant is an example because it's a genre blend. Like I'm on this comedy panel and I'm like, thank you very much for having me here. I don't know what my show is and I can't define it, but it's funny. I know it's funny when it's not like depressing. And I think that like they let us do these, like she runs around the corner and there's a giant rabbit filling the entire school hallway and then she runs screaming and everybody's like, oh, that's entertaining. So like I feel like what streaming does is it sort of opens it up for creators as well. It's not just, to your point, it's not just sex or language or anything like that. It's that the scope of the story you're telling, and I don't just mean scope like going to a lot of places or having like real locations. I mean the scope aesthetically of the show that you're creating can be more specific and then a lot more exciting, creative, powerful because of it. And that's something that I think streaming, I think that's part of the reason that networks are having to move, is less that they're trying to jump on a trend, but because people are going, oh, look at what else television can be. And then all of a sudden you look at a network and you're like, oh, I wish they'd start taking some chances, But I feel like some of them are right now, which is it's an exciting time.
You guys, I love it when I don't have to ask any questions and you talk amongst yourselves. That's my favorite moderating thing. I'm very disappointed that you stopped.
Well, Libby, if you don't want to stop, I have one more thing to say based upon.
Please.
Okay, because I know that everyone is like talking about Abbott in the network space, but you talked about taking risks, and I think the risk taking of other networks was a big part of like what even made Abbott like a success. Like NBC took some risks, CBS took some risks with their comedies this year, where I was like shocked. I was like, okay, CBS, like Ghost was kind of a like risk for them because everything else had been a little like whatever in the past few years that had come out. Not Young Sheldon, once again, fire show. I'm talking about like some of the comedies, they were safe, but Ghost was like a risk. So each network is taking their kind of risk. Like what is our risk? Fox, I mean, I'm not sure if it's coming back, but they had this comedy pivoting that I was like, even if this doesn't come back, I think this is a really cool risk. And people in general were getting excited about their Tuesday night lineups again. And they're like Wednesday night lineups. And I haven't heard anyone talk about that with comedies in forever. Like
I like sister show, and she just said, tell Quinta to talk about pivoting, so I didn't even have to. But for example, like I love Erin. I grew up with Erin, and she was at Warner Brothers before she bailed on us to do her amazing work at ABC. But she wanted to, because I developed Shining Vale at Warner Brothers with her, and she's like, bring that to ABC, and it would have to be we couldn't even find a clip to show on ABC. So it just wasn't, again, I would have to have changed the show so much, first of all, to fit it into 22 minutes, but also to be able to tell that story of mental illness and a woman having an affair who speaks in a very, very vulgar way. And there's not a ton of sex in the show, but it's certainly, it has a warning label, like my Zoloft on the front of it, and I don't think you could show that on network. So not to say that's not good or bad. It's just that, like, I think there are certain restrictions to network.
And the other thing is, I think like we underestimate to what extent like us as creators and showrunners like are inspired by each other's content. Like for years and years, we were coached into following that like formula we were talking about earlier about like what a network comedy is. But then once you see something that's working on another show, when you see the flight attendant doing 8 episodes of a murder mystery comedy, when you see something like Dead to Me, like as someone who's done like a bunch of workplace comedies, you start to think, well, the tools in my tool belt are growing and I can try different things because these different outlets exist. And I think that's why TV's having such a moment right now. There's so much like versatility and variety available to us that we can write to as opposed to against.
Yeah, I was going to say there's like, just on this panel, I know that Ted Lasso was a big influence on Peacemaker, even though it won't seem like it at all, but the unabashed way of dealing with, love, good naturedness, and really Peacemaker is just, he's such a messed up individual and it's so crass and he's mired in this terrible, terrible universe. But there's still this very like unironic, emotional love at the center of the show. And that was influenced by that. And then seeing The Flight Attendant on HBO Max, when HBO Max came to me and said, do you want to do a show? What do you want to do it on? And I'm like, HBO Max, I don't know. And I saw The Flight Attendant. And I'm like, oh my God, this show's so cool. And look at all the chances it takes. Look at the cool stuff it does. And then that really helped to talk me into doing Peacemaker at HBO Max. So it is, you don't follow it. You don't have to follow a trend, but also just the constant conversation that's happening, just like the conversation that's happening here in this room. The creative conversation we're having with being influenced by things while not just taking them and Xeroxing them, but taking elements you like and adding and then moving on it and upping it. And, I think is such a big part of what television is today. And it is really exciting. I mean, there's so much great stuff. And, I think that there's more content now than there will ever be because I think it is tightening. So it's an exciting time for us. And I think it's a good thing to be grateful for and take advantage of.
I'm waiting for airlines to come out with original content streaming, like where you have to take a Delta flight to watch the continuation of a Delta show. Because I don't know where else it goes. Like Tide, Procter & Gamble is going to have their own streaming service in 3 years. But that being said, I subscribe to every single one of them. My dog has his own streaming service that he watches when we leave him at home. Like I'll just keep getting them. As long as there's like 3 good shows on a streamer, I'm in.
This is no joke, but when we were filming in Berlin for the season of Flight Attendant, every time we had to fly over there and fly back, I just picked up a new episode of this Danish TV show that was only airing on like Iceland Air. And so over those flights, I just kept watching it. So I don't think we're far away from what you're talking about, Justin.
Proof of concept, Delta, hit me up. We can also talk to Steve. I don't know if Jeff should be involved. I don't know. He's been a little bit of a handful today.
I'll do the long haul flights.
That's such a good point though, because I was on a plane and I watched Kim's Convenience. I was on a plane from Canada. I don't know if you guys know that show. And I was like, I got to see more of that show. And I was like, I cannot wait to take my next Air Canada flight so I can watch Kim's Convenience on the plane. But I think if it goes all the way full around to what Bill was saying about like good show, people will come because like I refused to get Peacock at first. You cannot pay me to get Peacock. But then it wound up getting 3 shows. I was like, I got to see that show. And damn it, I have to subscribe. Like if the show is good, I will watch it. I will comment. I don't know what that says about me as a consumer. I don't like what it says about me as a consumer. I would like it to stop. I don't want to have all these things, but I will go find the show.
Same. I have all of them, and I feel like each time, like they got me. Like I'm not going to do this one. I'm holding out. I'm like, oh no, they got me. They got me one more time.
I can't watch horrors. I'm too scared. My husband literally hides under a bed. But I had Shudder for like 8 months because there was like one thing I really wanted. It's the only thing I've gone back. Shudder, you can win me back still, but that's the only one that's gone.
But I do think the exciting thing about this is it maybe blows up the thought that there's really rules to how you have to tell a story, which I think for a long time people thought, especially in development, people thought there's these ways you have to tell a story. And it seems like one of the exciting things about what's happening now is that there's just absolute proof out there that there's not rules to how you tell a story. Like each show just needs to be sort of unique to itself and it can find an audience and you can tell a story in 1,000 different ways.
And audiences are attracted to that like differentness
Yeah.
sometimes. You know what I mean? Like when Santa Clarita Diet was coming out, I was like, I don't know what this show is. And then it's like Drew Barrymore is a zombie eating people and keeping it from her children. It's like, that's a swing. Like that's like, you don't hear like the NBC ring after that and then go to Lex.
And on that zombie note, that's where we're going to leave our conversation today. Thank you all for being here. It was such an honor to be able to listen in on your conversation. One of my favorite conversations in quite some time. Thank you all for joining us today. Be the first to know about upcoming Wrap screenings and get access to exclusive content and premium events by becoming a Wrap Pro member. Join now to take advantage of a free trial. For all screening information, including past screenings you may have missed, please visit TheWrap.com events tab in the main nav bar.